And we are now on the record. Thank you,
sir.
Bonnie.
You're welcome.
I don't have anybody to welcome, but for the record, I'll let everyone know that I am Jim Millard, and I'm chairing tonight's meeting on behalf of Eric, who is traveling. The regularly scheduled meeting of the Environmental Protection Commission for tonight, Wednesday, January 8th, 2020. We do have a couple of pieces of old business, 3 in fact, and the first of those is EPC 40, 2019, Michael Donahue of 765 Hollow Tree Ridge Road, proposing a 2-lot subdivision and construction of a new house and related site disturbance in a regulated area and upland review area. The site is shown on Assessor's Map number 3 as lot number 38. There was a public hearing which closed on December 4. And I believe in your packets, because I have one, is a draft conditional approval that I'd like to ask all our fellow commissioners to help us review and comment.
I just have a couple typos in section 1. Project description, first paragraph, second line, septic system for the existing instead of exiting. In the second line, second page, sorry. Second page.
Second
Project system
page.
1. Second line, it should be existing instead of exiting, and then in the third line,
Ah.
the same paragraph, westerly should be portion instead of potion. That was it.
What do we usually do for dates? I know this is a
Thank you,
draft
Kelly.
Dates for the,
for the letters. So you have the effective and expiration date, but the date of the letter, do you wait?
oh, well, if it doesn't go out tomorrow, I'll date it Friday and.
But do you usually leave this open for the draft?
Yeah,
Notice that.
only because I usually, if I have a day or two. I mean, it usually goes out the next day, but sometimes, it takes, with, between March, they have to go out certified, so if, Martha or Tamara doesn't get to it right away, it might not go out till like Monday or whatever, so.
And like Susan picking up on dates, do you have other edits or comments?
That was the main one.
The expiration date,
Oh,
Rich,
should be the
I
7th.
think should be the 7th
Yeah, that should be the 7th.
on page 1.
Yep.
That was all I had. Gunnar?
I think they addressed all of our concerns pretty thoroughly and made improvements to the original plan. And I think it's, I don't have any, I'm totally in favor of this thing.
No comments?
No comment. Which I think gets us to the point of asking, we have to vote to approve this.
You have to vote.
Could we have a motion to approve the conditional approval for the project on Hollow Tree Ridge Road? So noted. Thank you, Gunnar. Kelly, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
5-0, okay.
5, and it's down a bit 4. There we go. The second order of business on tonight's agenda is EPC 43 of 2019, Town of Darien, Weed Beach Park, at 155 Nearwater Lane, proposing trail construction in an upland review area and wetland restoration. The site is shown on Assessor's Map number 56 as lot number 3-10. There was a public hearing which did close on December 4th of last year. And in your packets, there should be, again, a conditional approval that we need to review and approve.
So I did speak to Bill about adding a condition that they show the upland review area for both the wetland and the holly pond. It's not a big deal, but it was, it should be on there. It would have made it a little less
Absolutely
confusing
agree.
maybe to review. I think it's something that can be done as a condition before they submit to P and Z, and then.
So we could approve this tonight?
Yeah, I
and
think
then you
so.
can watch out for
Yeah, I mean,
that?
I had just scaled it myself, but you shouldn't have to do that. I mean, he's right, it should have been on there just meant to make it easier to read. I think they might have, on their display, might have shown it, but it should be on the the final plans.
That's a good pickup, thank you, Rich.
About the bills.
I only had, as long as I'm sitting here stealing the microphone, I had in project description, as Kelly did before, kind of 3/4 of the way down the first paragraph, a simple typo. I think it's disturbed,
Yep.
Disturbing.
92,000 square feet of disturbed area. It's a simple typo. That was all I found in my review. Susan,
That's good.
on my right, Bill, Gunnar?
I'm not good with this at all. I think they took the easiest way out with this asphalt type of a trail. I'm not in favor of that at all. I think it should be something similar to what is at your Woodland Park or at Waveney Park. And I also think they should reroute this thing around the wetlands altogether and not encroach on the wetlands, and I'm definitely not in favor, and will
Well,
vote
they're not
no.
encroaching on the wetlands. just-
Well, it's, I mean, it's close, it's within the setback, so
Right.
I'm not, I will vote against it.
I don't have anything in the record for denial, but that's certainly fine. You don't need a unanimous vote.
And when we are voting tonight, just for orders of procedure, we're voting first to go through this conditional approval and then the project, or is
No,
only
you're-
one single
There's
vote?
one vote.
Okay,
Right.
thank you. Any other thoughts, Bill, Kelly?
The thought that it would have been nice to have a easy way to walk through there to actually feel it. I mean, you can see it on this map, there's a lot of disturbance. I understand they have to do that to get the grade right, but you couldn't walk it to really figure that out, and that would have been nice, but, that's not in the condition here, but going forward, it certainly would be better to be able to walk to understand how close you really are to some of these wetland areas. So, it's a side note.
Yeah, it would be, that's fair. There was a section that was all briar. It was part of it was wide open and part of it was all briar. So that's a reasonable request in the future for anyone,
Right.
to be able to, physically walk the trail, not just walk near it, but that's reasonable.
I certainly don't support paving the path at Weed Beach, but I don't see any basis for denial.
Similarly, I would have preferred a more, less pervious option, less impervious option, but I don't feel like we have standing to deny the application.
And one other comment is, once they start talking ADA, we start getting our hands tied. And I'm not sure, does everything going to come forward from now on, we put that tag on it, and then we're stuck?
The way I look at it is the applicant asked for an approval for an ADA compliant path.
Right.
Let's say, for instance, that they came in and this, in order to make it ADA compliant, they had to actually physically encroach and fill wetlands. Then you could say to them, no, that's not acceptable. That would be different. But if the applicant is asking for a certain thing, and unless there's some demonstrable impact to the wetland, that's what they want. It'd be like saying, well, you can, I'm not sure I can find a similar example, but if it were something that physically impacted the wetland and filled it, then you could tell them, no, you have to scale it back. Or this portion can't be compliant, or move it, something along those lines.
Or make it a boardwalk that's ADA compliant.
Yeah, if you went through, that would be another option, yeah. I mean, if there were something that they wanted to pave through a wetland, that's a great example. If they wanted to pave through a wetland, There are boardwalks, I know Audubon has a boardwalk for the blind that goes through a wetland. It's on raised piers. Sure. You could do that. I don't think you need it here, but that would have been a good example, is if, they wanted to pave through the wetland, and you would say, no, absolutely not.
Because one of the things Gunnar is mentioning is that it does get wet down very close to that, where they've done the actual cutting and made their
Right.
own trail. It's wet down there, and it's pretty much where they're going to be putting that trail.
Right.
The nice way and the more expensive way, you could boardwalk that, but
Yeah, I think the area, if it's asphalt and there are times when it's icy or wet, then it's not necessarily accessible for anybody. It's not going to be accessible for bikes or anything. So, yeah, there may be times of the year when it's not accessible for anybody. But, on a nice day, if it's clear and there's no snow and, and they want it to be accessible for ADA, then that's what that was their goal.
I think that's probably the point of the dilemma that I wrestle with internally, and that is compliance with ADA for anybody that might want to enjoy this, as against using gravel, which I think I spoke to at our last hearing on this subject. So I'm kind of a bit on the fence, but like Kelly and Susan, I don't know that I can stand in the way of having this go forward.
Yeah, well, I think Pam Gary's point was that there are trails in town that are not ADA accessible, and that's their goal was to have one here. And I don't question the Park Commission's goal. I mean, is how I look at it. If that's their goal and they feel it's necessary, then does it impact the wetland? And that's the only question you're looking
right.
at.
That's
Not
fair.
whether they.
That's our purview.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if you've ever been on the trails at either Waveney or Woodland, I mean, those trails are hard to pack. They're not wet, mushy, or muddy, and actually, I know at Woodland, there are areas where they've got like a wooden deck
Yeah.
across where there are really wet areas, which there are some. So that's what I would.
But I can't, determine, I don't know if those are ADA compliant or not. I have no, I have no way of knowing.
Any other thoughts from commissioners? I think then it's time to ask for a motion to go forward on this. So I have a motion to proceed. Holly, thank you. Thank you, Bill, for seconding. All those in favor? Aye. All those against? Duly noted.
Yep,
Thank you, Rich.
sure. Mhm.
Thank you all. Let's see, we have a third piece of old business to address right now, and that is EPC 45-2019, the Country Club of Darien at 300 Mansfield Avenue, proposing pond maintenance dredging. The site is shown on Assessor's Map number 5 as Lot 40. And again, I believe you all have the draft conditional approval in your packet. Try and keep things moving. I had only one note, and that is in the project description again. In the second sentence, Rich, you used the word "the" twice.
Okay.
And that's the only thing I found on this. And like Susan's question of earlier, the date up top, when this goes out, that'll be corrected, or correct.
I had the same.
I knew it. Any other comments, notes, edits? May we have a motion to approve?
I make a motion. to approve.
Gunnar, Susan seconds, Rich. All those in favor? Aye. That's 5. Okay. That's later business. We now move to the second part of our agenda for tonight, public hearings. The first of those, and to remind all of you, the commission may return to these agenda items later in the meeting to deliberate if the public hearing portion of the application is closed, and only then. The first of these is EPC number 48, 2019, Fletcher Development LLC at 12 Locust Hill Road, proposing a new house construction and related site development in an upland review area. The site is shown on Assessor's Map number 64 as lot number 103-7. Thank you, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Tom, for the record, Tom Nelson, professional engineer with McCord Engineering. Never had the commission's undivided attention quite like this before. Kind of nice. We prepared the site development plans for Fletcher Development. We are the next 2 items on the agenda. These are 2 adjacent lots. It's actually part of a 4-lot development that's taking place right now. I thought I'd give the commission just sort of a brief run-through of what's happening out there, the fuller picture, and then I'll get into the details of those particular lot developments. So the plan I have, Rich, am I able to slide that back a hair, or is that? Okay.
Sure.
So this is the overall plan that is being developed right now by Fletcher Development. So these 2 lots are actually outside of all the regulated areas. Those are approved in construction. At least some of the initial earthwork is underway. These are the 2 lots that are before you tonight. We've labeled these confusingly as Lot 4 and Lot 7, which is corresponds with the original subdivision. What you'll see on your agenda, this is house number 12 and this is house number 14. I just wanted to sort of give a sense of the global picture there. There's the 4 lots. This is an existing driveway that comes up from Locust Hill, an existing turnaround here, and then these lots all gain access from that. There was an existing house that's since been demolished that sort of sat in about the same location as what's proposed here on house number 14. Rewinding to sort of the original subdivision that took place and was approved in the late 90s. Again, the 4 lots, I've highlighted the buildable area. It's not the lot, but that's kind of the point I'm trying to drive home. These 4 lots highlighted in yellow are the 4 lots being developed. These are the 2 that are before you tonight. What's highlighted in yellow is our building envelope, essentially, that was created as part of this subdivision. It was a 7-lot subdivision. It was about a 12-acre site. What I've highlighted in green is the area that was designated as either open space or conservation easement. There was about 2.5 acres designated as open space and 3.6 acres designated as conservation easement. So total 6.1 acres of that original 12-acre subdivision were designated as the as a or were preserved, essentially. So obviously, a fair amount of effort was undertaken at that time to sort of keep these developments fairly clustered. These other 3 lots, lots 1, 2, and 3, have been since sold off and developed. So those are already built. What's left is these 4 lots, that 2 of which are before you tonight. One other.
Tom, could I ask a quick question?
Sure.
So where are the 2 that are under construction or have been approved already on that?
Those are these 2 here. So
Okay.
you can see just proximity, the Goodwife's River and the wetlands highlighted in blue. Those didn't have any area within the regulated wetlands. So these are the 2 that are before you tonight, regulated by some of the infringement we had on this wetland system here.
Okay.
So one aspect that affected our development, and I just wanted to briefly touch on it. This was the original feasibility development plan that Stearns and Wheeler created. I don't expect you to be able to read it from there. I can hardly read it from here. But again, in yellow, these are those 4 lots. Those are the building envelopes. In blue, that is the wetlands area. In green, interestingly, was a detention basin that was proposed as the stormwater mitigation for this entire subdivision. So essentially, they were building a gabion wall at the base of this wetlands that was going to serve as an impoundment for stormwater in this area, and was, primarily within the wetland system. They didn't build that, and I bet you I couldn't get that approved today.
No.
So we're a little bit handcuffed in that, this development was sort of designed with a detention system in mind that doesn't exist. So we are now, forced to comply with the stormwater regulations of the town of Darien, on a site that, if you visit it, has its, a number of challenges. So I just thought I'd bring that up. The good news is they did build the sewer lateral that was proposed at the subdivision. They also built that turnaround driveway, so they didn't forget to do all of it, just the drainage. So this is number 12, Locust Hill. And I'll again put up the sort of overall development picture. This is this lot here. That's sort of how this keys into the whole project. Sure. Sure. I'll just leave this in front. So the lot, I think the challenge of these properties, with all the area that was designated as conservation, with the sites themselves, are very ledgy. There's steep slopes around the edges. They've been partially developed in the past, so there's certainly difficult lots to develop. So, but I think the overall scheme of the development is in line with what was originally conceived at that subdivision level, which was these 4 houses that would sort of form a pretty tight-knit community on the top of the knoll there. So this is the proposed house at number 12. This is actually the driveway that will serve the next property that I will be reviewing with you, which is the house at number 14. This is that turnaround, and then up here are the 2 lots that are already starting to be under construction. So for the most part, it's a fairly typical lot development. We have a house, driveway, swimming pool. We have the sanitary sewer, which we're connecting into, and then the municipal water as well. The stormwater management system, which I mentioned, because we did need to do something on the property, it's a slightly unique system. We don't have good soils out there. There's a lot of ledge on the property, so we couldn't rely on a traditional sort of dry well system. Instead, we have just an underground storage chamber with an outflow device that has small diameter orifices that sort of meter the outflow. So we're able to control the peak flow from the site in that way. The downside of one of those systems is without that infiltration component, we don't get sort of that water quality benefit. So what we've proposed to mitigate that is a hydrodynamic separator, which is essentially a large diameter manhole with an engineered internal components that force the stormwater into it in sort of a swirling motion. So there's an initial grit screen that catches sort of large particles, and then this sort of swirling motion captures small particles. So we've used that for a number of years. It's pretty well studied and pretty well, with pretty good results in order to capture suspended solids on sites like this where we were challenged by what we can do for water quality purposes. This is sort of the area here where we're within the regulated area. We have the driveway here. We've proposed a fairly tall retaining wall in an effort to mitigate the amount of disturbance we do on this side near the wetlands. The one component that is closest, you'll see, is the level spreader which is the outlet point of the underground detention system. So that's essentially the overflow of that detention system. Water from the property, from the house, from the driveway will first go through that hydrodynamic separator, clean out sediment, whatever else might be captured. Then it gets temporarily stored in that underground detention system and slowly spills out to this level spreader, and then that level spreader is essentially designed to spread that flow out across a wider swath and allow it to rejoin the water in the wetlands down below. I think that's it on our development plan. And then at Rich's request, we also had Wesley Stout, who's been Wesley Stout Associates from New Canaan, who's been closely involved in this project, working on the layout. They prepared a site, a mitigation planting plan for that area that's closest to the wetlands. And this is upside down relative to my plan, so in actuality, this is really, I'm orienting you the same way. This is the house, this is the retaining wall, and then this is the mitigation planting that Wesley Stout has proposed within that conservation easement, but obviously, entirely for the benefit of the wetlands. No real benefit to our development. I think that sort of sums it up for number 12. I can jump into number 14 if you'd rather lump them together, or maybe we could.
Just a quick question?
Sure.
Because there's a big drop-off, right, on the other side of the retention wall?
Yeah.
And you've got the spreader.
Yeah.
So if you get a lot of water, a lot of rain, big rain coming, when that's going through the spreader and dropping down that, how do you make sure you don't get erosion so it starts?
Well, I think that's sort of the key to, we've brought that spreader down to the low side of this. This is the retaining wall, retaining uphill to the side. This level spreader comes down to the low side of that retaining wall. So we're getting down.
How much drop-off would you have then?
So the retaining wall itself is going to be 4 to 8 feet tall. But below that, we start to get into some more realistic slopes down there. So that level spreader will actually be spilling downward. I don't know the exact slope here, but this is not as steep as some of these areas further up the hill. So I don't anticipate there being erosion. Again, that's another reason for that level spreader sort of to spread that water out and allow it to spread more naturally across the land. Any other questions?
Am I right, just for orienting myself as to where on Delafield Island Road the dark green is? Is that Land Trust's property, the dark green?
The dark green.
Adjacent to Delafield Island Road, am I right?
Yeah, this dark green is part of the
Part of your
section
site.
It's our site, right? But you're right, that is adjacent to the.
Darien Land Trust.
Yeah, too many plans. This actually indicates that would be adjacent to. Let me put that as. So what is designated as open space on this plan is what is now Darien Land Trust. So this swath through here, and this swath through here is their land trust. This
Thank you.
portion that's immediately adjacent to ours is actually a conservation easement that was associated with the other property, but you're right.
Thank you.
Basically, the corners connect there. Should I jump into number 14?
I'll keep them separate, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, keep they're two different hearings.
Any questions from any of our commissioners? Mr. Nelson? This must go down in your, when you're sitting around your internal conference room table, that chord is one of the ones that gets you thinking.
It's true.
This is not a walk in the park. It sounds like you thought out.
It was,
Awful
yeah,
lot.
you know, a lot of the credit goes to, you know, Wesley Stout. You know, they sort of had the overall vision. And, you know, Fletcher Development, you know, we've been working with them a lot. They're definitely doers. So it's a good project for them. They'll get it done in a hurry, and it'll look good at the end. So it's definitely a unique project, though. We don't see too many of these sort of cluster developments quite in this nature. And yeah, we were concerned when it first came in that drainage might just sink the whole ship.
Would you consider this almost like a conservation development, even though it didn't
Yeah,
met the zoning?
that was actually my first thought. I mean, you know, in Norwalk, I think this would often be called a conservation development. You know, and it hasn't seemed to be ever designated like that. But yeah, that was always sort of the concept there, is that you cluster the buildings closer. And a lot of times in the conservation development, you are actually allowed less strict building setbacks. So, you know, maybe your houses be closer together and you could really put those together. So in this case, we kind of have the worst of both worlds. We've designated a lot to conservation, and we still have to comply to the normal building setbacks, you know, which is probably why that pool isn't quite where we want it to be, but it's where it would fit.
I'm not sure it has any bearing on what we're talking about tonight, but just from a purely curiosity point of view, is Fletcher also doing the two homes that are currently under construction?
Yes, they're doing all
Is
four.
that north of you?
Yep.
Or west of you?
West.
West of you.
Yep, west.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank
they're
you.
doing all four contiguously.
Public comment?
I think it's that time. Is anybody that's joined us tonight would like to come up and have a comment at the mic, please, on number 12, Locust Hill Road? You're invited to come up if you'd like to speak. You look hesitant. But if you would like to comment, you do need to come to the microphone.
I feel strange because I wasn't here at the beginning, so I don't want to ask questions that may have already been covered. So I think it's probably.
If it would help you clarify whatever's in your mind, you're welcome to come up, identify yourself,
Okay.
and ask that question. If you choose not, that's fine.
Yeah, I think I need to learn a little more.
Okay,
Thanks.
you're most welcome.
Happy to go over it with you after.
Oh, thanks. Okay.
And I don't think there's anybody else that might want to come forward. And I think that's Mr. Gedney for the other item, the last of our items on our agenda. I have no further comments, Susan.
No.
Kelly.
No.
Gunnar. Bill. Thank you, Mr. Miller.
Thank you very much.
Do we need to close that public hearing before?
We do.
Yes.
So do we have a motion to do so? Thank you, Kelly. And
What's the
Susan,
motion
just a
again?
second.
To close
To
the-
close the public hearing
For 12.
hard for number 12 Locust Hill Road, at which point we'll go further. Could we have a vote on that? That's fine, Rich. Thank you. So that public hearing is closed, and so we'll move to, for those that want to stay on our agenda, we're now going to move to the public hearing for EPC 49 of 2019, Fletcher Development, again LLC, at 14 Locust Hill Road, proposing new house construction and related site development in an upland review area. The site is shown on Assessor's Map number 64 as lot number 106-B. Welcome back, Mr. Mills.
Thank you very much. So just keying us in again, this is the lot we're discussing now. So this is almost, in a sense, sort of a rear lot as it relates to this, small cul-de-sac here. This is the lot we just discussed. This one actually has a driveway that has an easement that crosses this lot at number 12. This was also the property that had the original house on it. I honestly do not know when that house got torn down. Not that long ago, there was still sort of evidence of it. Today, with the site work that's going on, you couldn't even tell it was there. But this lot was formerly developed with a single-family residence that you can sort of. You can see in this original subdivision plan located right here, which is almost identical to the location where the new lot development has it shown. So you sort of can get the sense that there's sort of a similar motif going on these properties. They all have very similar style architecture. Again, sort of this small 4-unit community on top of the hill there. Very similar style house. We have the driveway serving from this same cul-de-sac, crossing that property in front of it. This one we actually did have a little bit larger of a building envelope, so we were able to orient the pool to the rear of the house. We are connecting into the sewer. We are connecting into the municipal water. Our drainage system, I will, I guess for the record, just quickly summarize, poor soil conditions, forced to do a detention system that doesn't allow infiltration. So once again, we have runoff being collected from the entire house and most of the driveway being captured, taken through a hydrodynamic separator to filter out any sediment, debris that might be in it, and then into the detention system where water is sort of held back by an outflow structure with small diameter orifices that sort of meters that outflow and brings us down to a level spreader, again, oriented as close as we can. We're trying to get to the bottom of that, as close as we can to the bottom of the hill so we are, not on the steep slopes, and we can discharge that water, a level spreader, across a wider swath that should minimize any erosion potential. This property, you can see the regulated area here in red. We've encroached with this underground detention system. Obviously, the lawn and a small corner of the pool are within that regulated area. And once again, sort of, back here you have, this is the global picture of this, large swaths of conservation easement that are certainly on this side of the property, a little tighter over here. And I think that was sort of the give and take that was sort of intended from that original subdivision. I think that sums it up for this one. I don't have any specific planting plan for this one. It's just we didn't feel we were quite as close to the wetlands and quite as infringing as we were on the previous lot.
It is an amazing wetlands around that. We took a walk out there, and you're sitting on top of the high ground, and the whole subdivision, four houses,
Yeah.
commanding a view of a tremendous wetland area around it.
Yeah, it's a very,
So it's nice that it was pulled off, and it'd be tough to build in there anyway, but it's nice that it's now protected.
yeah, agreed. It's definitely a challenging site to construct, and I assume that was the idea behind the conservation portion. But yeah, it sits higher. The development area definitely sits higher than those wetlands. It'll have, some nice views, I think, in the green season.
Do you know the size of that entire site?
The overall area? Yeah, I do have that. 1.4 acres. 1.42 acres is the total size.
Oh, you mean the whole property?
John, I was wondering, this particular,
Oh.
It's just this
Oh,
lot.
yeah.
Yeah, this lot is 1.4 acres.
I was looking for that on these plans, I couldn't find it. But thanks. Is my eye telling me that 60% is protected open space and wetlands and 40% is devoted to the house, maybe?
Yeah, I was hoping to find that exact statistic on the survey, and I'm not seeing it. Yeah, 0.89 acres, conservation easement, 1.42 acres total. So, yeah, I'd say that's pretty good guess.
Any comments, ladies and gentlemen? I think we can turn to public to see if anyone might like to offer an observation or a thought, and if so, please do come forward and identify yourself at the mic and share your thoughts. All set? Okay, thank you. If no one has any other comments, I think we now need to move to close the public hearing on 14 Locust Hill Road, if I'm not mistaken. Do I have a motion to do so? Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Kelly. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Public hearing is closed for 14 Locust Hill
Thank you very
Road,
much.
EPC 49, 2019. Thank you. The next order of business is a public hearing for application EPC 46 of 2019. Mike Gedney of 145 Old Kings Highway North, proposing a swimming pool in a regulated area and upland review area. The site is shown on Assessor's Map 34 as lot number 23.
Just one point,
Please.
I did receive responses to Darren Ostafein's comments from Mr. Rizzoli in his report, and I thought I had printed out Darren's response. I mean, I can summarize, basically, he was satisfied with the responses.
I was thinking I was going to raise that with you when we were able to deliberate after,
He did.
if we're allowed.
He did, well, I can just run through them quickly. The open questions were, was there a perk test? They did do a perk test, and it was favorable. She was satisfied with that. There was a existing catch basin, which didn't have a defined outlet. The pipe is now shown to connect to the level spreader. It was unclear how the water in the patio was going to be treated or taken to the level spreader, and there is a pipe shown that takes the patio water to the level spreader. And those were the outstanding comments. Everything else, I think he was just making general comments, and those were the three outstanding
At least for
comments he
me, and
responded to.
anybody else is welcome. That's what I
I will,
took
I will,
it
I
to
will send
be,
that, I will send that email to you. I have it. I thought I
because
printed it.
you did print it for, at least for
I know, I
the
didn't,
packet I
I did
received.
not print his response, though.
But in your notes,
Right.
heading it, summarizing what we're going to be discussing
Right.
tonight, I took those to mean just what you recited there, Rich.
Yes, I can go get it, but Darren's response is basically those three items.
Yeah.
He's saying he's satisfied. I'll forward that.
And as long as we're on that topic, at the risk of asking you to wait another half a minute, sir, was the recommendation in number 11, Rich, number 13, on the Locust Hill properties.
He did say that, yes, there is now a pipe shown that goes to the level spreader, and he's, that there's a note that says confirm the location, but he's satisfied that that would be, that they'll find that.
And that the drawings, as it notes in number 11 and 13, will be covered.
The drawing covers that, yes.
Okay, very good.
I could speak to some of that also
Okay,
later on, if you like,
good.
if I can help to clarify it all.
Sure.
But, good
I
evening.
just thought I
Open to
printed it.
all
I thought I
positive
printed his
contributions.
response, and I did not,
Thank you.
unless it's here somewhere.
Good evening, ABC, and thank you for your time. My name is Sean Walters. I'm a landscape architect employed by Wagner Pools. As you know, we have a residential pool project located at 145 Old Kings Highway North. This lot was developed prior to current regulations. Consequently, nearly half the site is in a regulated upland review area. Nearly the entire backyard where the project is located as well. So therefore, we had to try to design carefully. We placed the pool 6 feet away from the rear of the residence. We couldn't go any closer due to safety reasons, but we also made the pool only 15 feet wide. Did everything we could to pull the footprint of our work in as far away from the wetlands line as we possibly could. Despite that, we still have 270 square feet of encroachment into the wetlands area, and we are proposing a fairly robust strategy of best management practices to include a 2,200 square foot mitigation planting plan, native species, located at the rear of the lot. That happens to be about 8 times, a little over 8. Oh, I'm sorry. That it's a little over 8 times the size or the footprint of the 270 square foot encroachment. In addition to that, we are proposing stormwater mitigation in excess of what's required by the town. What I mean by that is that the existing residence, the roof on the existing residence, the roof on the existing garage, and the entire driveway are all draining to point pollution sources into the wetlands. We're proposing to take all of that, and this ties into what you were just discussing with the percolation tests, with the favorable results. We're going to take half of the roof on the residence, the entire roof of the garage, and all of the driveway, and we're going to infiltrate that into Coltex systems. This is above and beyond what was required by the town. The pool and patio by itself, in and of itself, we have the planting area that I just mentioned, but also the level spreaders, which are favorable due to the topography of this particular lot. So we hope that you will favorably regard these changes that we proposed throughout the course of the project. In my opinion, the post-construction footprint is actually going to have less of an impact on the wetlands than the existing site does right now.
So you mentioned that there would be 270 some feet of encroachment, but you would be replacing, how many feet would be, all the plantings would be how many approximately?
I'm sorry, could you?
The plantings would be how many square feet?
The planting bed will be 2,200 square feet, which is just over 8 times the size of the 270 square foot encroachment area, if you will, into the wetlands.
So what's in that planting area now? I didn't really see that area.
There's some Pachysandras back there, a couple of Norway maples. There are some chokeberries, which are favorable. We're going to leave those. And also some euonymus, which are coming out. In fact, part of our demolition plan, we have keyed in to remove all of the euonymus on site.
Some is lawn, too, I think.
Yes, the bulk of that rear yard area is lawn. It's kind of a strange scenario. Probably at some point, maybe in the 60s when they built the house, Richard was surmising, and I think probably correctly so, that they had taken the castings from the foundation, filled in that area. What you're looking at back there right now is what I refer to as a dry wetlands. You can dig down there, there's no water. There's no indication. There's a wooden swing set, a child's play set that's been sitting back there for years. There's no rot on it. Not until you get to the actual rear of the property where the mitigation plantings are proposed. This area is wet. It's always wet. It's a sort of place where you are going to see salamanders, frogs, things like that, and therefore the mitigation plantings are all natives. Amelanchier canadensis, Clethra elenifolias, red twig dogwood, so on and so forth. Things that will really work well with the ecology.
I mean, it sounds like a net positive to the property. Would you say, would you agree with that?
Yes. Yes. One thing as a landscape architect I don't like are the asphalt, the shingles, the driveway. Everything's just going. They're draining into point sources through the existing retaining wall. Straight which is on the wetlands line, and that's. I think that's a big deal to be able to take that and infiltrate it, hold the water so that it can percolate a little bit before it works its way down, into the wetlands. At least at that point, it'll be purified and cleansed.
And it won't have any impact on it will, that's not well spoken. It won't negatively, incrementally impact your wetlands. It may, I think you've said, even be enhanced because it'll be
Arguably,
water.
and in my opinion, yes, absolutely, because right now, we have the entire driveway, both roofs, the garage and the residence,
just,
point discharge into the wetlands, right on the wetlands line.
and that, was it half of a roof? Give me those.
So what we would like
Stats
to
again.
mitigate is half of the roof on the residence. It's just the way that it ends up with where we can place the Coltex
Right.
and gravity and the topography of the site. So half of the roof, that would be the roof line between, closest to the road, and then the entire roof of the garage, and then the entire driveway.
Would come in your stormwater management system.
Correct, yes, it would go into...
And it does not exist today, as you said, this was built prior to these regulations.
Yes, it doesn't exist today, and because we realize, the owner, Mike Gedney, is here tonight, actually appreciates that, part of the aesthetics, the value of his property is the wetlands. And to make an upgrade, it isn't just about putting a swimming pool in and a patio. You're also going to be enhancing the natural environment around it. So we had some lengthy discussions about that, and he actually thought it would be a good idea, even though it's not required, to dig into his pockets a little. And he said, hey, look, let's put some Coltex in. Let's take care of the roof if you think that's going to help with the project, help the wetlands, and help to minimize or negate, any impact that the project will have. And it's, it's a considerable cost, to implement all these measures. Mr. Gedney's willing to do it. I think it makes sense, and I think it will improve the quality of the wetlands, even with the addition of the swimming pool and the patio. Basically, the water that's getting back there is all being filtrated, minus the water that's falling directly on it.
Right.
Huge improvement over what's there.
Do you have to put irrigation systems back there if you start having a drought area to keep the plantings going? Just curious, it's a wetland
wouldn't
area,
do it.
but do you ever have a problem where as the plants start to take off and all of a sudden you get a drought?
I advise, anytime I do a planting plan, wetlands or no, I always advise people, listen, if you can manage irrigating the first year, that's really all you need.
Okay.
Short of periods of drought. You don't need to dump volumes of water on things, unless you have expanses of lawn. I don't think Mike is particularly crazy about the expanse of lawn. He was more than happy to give up a large 2,200 square feet of it for the mitigation plantings. every time I've been back there, it's wet. It's spongy in that back corner. That's where, in my mind, like a proper wetlands that everybody thinks of, where it's, skunk cabbages and, certain indicators that the ground is a very high water table. I don't see any need for irrigation back there. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't recommend it. I don't think it's, we're trying to conserve water, and I think that would be wasteful.
I'm happy to kick off a comment or two, or at least a thought for everyone's consideration. And I think you said that the intrusion on the wetlands to create the pool patio is 270 square feet.
Correct.
In exchange for which the owner of the home is going to correct maybe a deficient condition to deal with water in the driveway coming off half the building and the garage building.
Yes. Treat it as though it was being built today under
Correct.
today's regulations.
Thank you.
Yes.
And further, do what, at least in one small chart with an expert on hand, beautiful plantings at the rear of the property. If you've been at these meetings before, there are certain commissioners who can stand pretty tough against ever intruding on a wetland, but there's a part of me that's hearing a little more than 15 by 15 is just slightly less than 270 square feet. That's the size of many of a bedroom we have in our homes. And you can probably see where I'm going with this. My own gut is telling me this is such an upgrade and going beyond what's necessary to create, yes, a beautiful entertainment area on a home that I'm not as tough as some of my other fellow commissioners you're about to hear from, but
That's always been my philosophy also as a wetland scientist. I can only, say that this is a significant
change.
It's an opportunity that's being offered to take an area of wetland that's otherwise would never be restored. I mean, they would be entitled to mow it, as long as they liked.
Yeah.
And for, to give up an area of, adjacent to the house, it's clearly a, positive.
It appears that way to me.
I as an expert, I would say that's my opinion also.
And I welcome anybody else's thoughts on how they view the plan for 145. Hope I got that right. Old Kings Highway North. Gunnar, Kelly, Susan?
I think the net result is a significantly positive one, so they're going well out of their way to try to mitigate the impact to the negative impact to the wetland.
I think the end result should be a dramatic improvement.
We think so too.
We are having a public hearing. If I have no more comments from our commissioners, I can invite anybody up, including the homeowner, but I'm not sure he's going to want to comment. So I don't see anybody that wants to join us at the microphone, and so if there are no further comments, I think it's appropriate to ask to close the public hearing. Kelly, thank you. Susan seconds, and all those in favor of that?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. We do have, as I think you probably all know from Rich's email of a day or so, and passing this out just earlier, an additional agenda item, which is simply agent approval, Rich.
Yeah.
And that would be for EPC 01 2020. Roger and Christina Farley at 7 Briarbrae Road, proposing a house addition and patio in an upland review area. The site is shown on Assessor's Map number 29 as Lot 38.
This came in early Monday morning, and it was, to me, it was simple enough not to tell them to wait till February, since I had the opportunity to, as long as you're okay with it, or the commission's okay, to do a supplemental item as an agenda item.
What is the addition?
It's a small addition on the back of the house, a portion of which is within your 50-foot review area,
Yes.
and then a patio. The addition, it's actually, the house itself, that already exists, extends further, so it's really just sort of closing off a small portion. Yeah, and about 150 square feet is within your review area. And then a non-grade, patio that sort of squares off the house and the existing house, and the addition sort of makes it a squared off area.
My printer didn't want to print it, but I could
Oh, I'm sorry.
get a sense of what was
I
going
got
on.
this little itty bitty thing that my
When I
printer
looked,
pulled off.
My printer fought back.
It's
when-
pretty busy.
If you'd like to take a few minutes, I can pass around the
Yeah,
hard
this
copy.
is pretty busy to read.
I looked at it at home.
This may be.
Let's get the real map out, the real study out here.
The addition is, this small portion of the addition
Yeah.
is within your review area. This is the existing house, and this is a patio. The hatched area is area they're going to take and put into stormwater detention, because it's required that they do something. And the wetland is down here. It's essentially all lawn until you get, here's the tree. This would be the edge of the tree, but all of this was currently lawn.
So as you come off Hoyt Street and make a right, go up Briar Bray Road, is this on the right or the left? 'Cause
Is that
It's on the
Hoyt?
right.
it's on the right-hand side,
Yeah.
okay.
It's, right, this is kind of a steep area here coming down.
Yeah, it's that road, it's pretty
Yeah,
steep.
the other house is much higher when it comes down. There was at one point they were, oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking at it the wrong way. I'm over here, this house is up on a hill, and it comes down. This is much lower.
So you went over and walked around all over there?
Yeah, I did. I actually met them out there when they were looking to do, at one point, they were thinking about bringing the driveway in and coming around on this side of the house, which would not have been within your review area. But what they encountered was that they would need to cut into this hillside, build a wall. They have to go through planning and zoning for land filling and regrading, and it would have been a 3-month process. So the alternative they came up with was to do the addition and come in off the front, and then you don't have to do all that earthwork. So you might not have even seen it if they, this is totally separate from what they wanted to do in the garage.
Tiny sliver.
So this sliver, this is your review area, and this portion.
Oh,
would
the
be
dotted line.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just that.
So it's not even the whole addition, really.
And there's already this.
And that already exists, right? So you're, the net area toward the wetland is actually, doesn't really change. This is proposed patio.
And is something happening here? Not that
That's a
it matters to
roof-
us,
Proposed roof porch.
but it's not even inside of
It's outside
our
the review area,
upland
right?
Sorry, what is
area
this
for
kind of
review.
area again?
That's the area they're going to capture of the roof for stormwater. So they're capturing the driveway and a portion of the roof.
Yeah, this is inside of our purview.
Yeah, the driveway they're going to store in the front, and a portion of the roof is going to be stored.
And right now it's just running.
Right now it's,
Seems fair.
I think your
Fair trade.
review of the office sounds right to me.
yeah, the alternative was I'd make them wait till February, and I just thought it was simple enough to put on this agenda.
Thoughts, anybody? I think with Richard's very good care, as he always gives, I think it's time to ask for a motion to.
You don't need a motion. It's
Don't
just-
need-
Yeah, I just put, if you had an objection, I would
Okay.
have held it, I would have held it over till February.
Cancel that thought. Then the only other business, I believe,
Well, the public hearing stuff.
is the public hearings, if anybody would like to discuss or deliberate any of those.
Oh,
The 2 Locust Hill properties, so the 145 Old Kings Highway, which we just heard about.
I think 145 Kings Highway is so much better.
It's much-
The trade-off is fine. I don't have any concerns on that at all.
I feel the same way. It sounds like a net positive, so I'm in favor of that.
And I like that, I mean, there was a part of me, I must admit, that looking at that grand planting plan of 2,000-plus square feet for an area that's just shy of 300 square feet is pretty good trade. Then to offer to then properly treat water coming off of, call it 1.5 buildings and a driveway, at least from an environmental perspective, in my mind, is pretty darn good.
Yeah, they're taking out some more grass too, more grass they can take out, less fertilizer. It's a small portion, but, less mowing and put it back to natural.
Susan?
same viewpoint
Good.
expressed, yeah, on the right. So what's your-
So I'll write that up.
Please. The 3 of them.
what, do we need to discuss the other two?
Yeah.
I wanna make-
Or the Locust Hill, right up
Yeah.
145 is what your question
Yeah.
was there, Rich.
Right.
Yeah.
And on the 2 Locust Hill developments by Fletcher Development, are there thoughts or additional discussion you all would like to have?
I still don't like the first one where with the pool and everything, that if they would have just taken the pool out or flipped it around, they could have stayed out and not built a giant retaining wall and encroached. But again, I don't think there's.
I heard
anything we
him
could
say a
do.
giant retaining wall, but then didn't he comment that it was only
4 to 8
4 to 8
4 to 8
feet?
feet.
Yeah.
Which I don't know that that's giant, but I have been out to the site and it does drop off and it's pretty,
It's a pretty steep drop off.
it's a pretty crazy site.
But I don't think we have a basis to deny it, but I go on the record that I'm not happy about that one.
I don't know that they have an alternative.
No. Well, we
Kind
can't,
of not to do a pool.
well, we couldn't force them not to, unfortunately.
Right.
but-
My
Right.
thought is the homeowner will come in and they'll want a
And
pool.
ask,
And
yeah.
then they'll have to do mitigation, or they'll have to demonstrate why it's not an impact, or, but again, the original subdivision was sort of a limited conservation subdivision, so it's, there's no lawns, there's no recreational areas, it's, they're tight lots, so. And that was my thought, I did not discourage them from the pool when I thought about it that way. They could have just said, we don't want to try and mitigate, we'll just, get it out of there and not even come to the commission, actually, on that one.
Right.
They probably could have avoided coming to the commission. Had they just built a wall right on the 50-foot review line.
Do we, in town, do we have any, to me, it's a cluster, which is pretty neat, but they had to do that because everything else is wet. Do we have other places in town where you have a tight kind of area where the rest is all?
I haven't
protected?
seen any since I've been here,
Yeah.
and so I can't say that there aren't any. But there haven't been a lot of subdivisions since I've been here.
Okay.
Most of, a lot of what we've seen has been redevelopment. This was sort of unusual. I didn't really even know it was there.
Yeah, it is interesting.
That those lots were there. Once, it was kind of out of the blue, all of a sudden, you've got these lots that have been sitting there since 1995, or 97, I think, was when they built went through litigation for several years back then. Yeah. But that's why I thought it had the trappings of a conservation subdivision, but then when he said, but we're still conforming to the regulations, so it's sort of a weird hybrid.
Gunnar, you look like you have an additional thought or two.
Well, I'm going to say, Rich, what are your thoughts on this thing overall? I mean, on one
Well,
Locust
again,
Hill.
you know, I didn't discourage them from, originally, they wanted to go into the conservation easement with the level spreaders because they were tight. And I said, that's way too complicated. You're not gonna, the commission's not gonna wanna do that, and you're gonna start getting into, you know, the legal aspect of changing it and so forth. So they pulled everything back out of the conservation easement. I thought that was an improvement off the original, the plans that I saw originally. And then when I looked at the condition of the easement and what could be done, I just saw an opportunity to plant it, clean it, you know, clean up the invasives and do some planting. And a large portion of that wetland's pretty healthy, but there are areas around the fringe of the old development which have seen the invasives come in and are not in as good condition. So, I mean, I thought it was adequately mitigated. You know, for work within 50 feet, not for work within a wetland.
Right.
Okay.
I'm good.
I think we're good. So, Rich, I think Art
I'll write that up for.
is asking you to write that up for us. We're not voting on anything at this particular time.
No.
And if you would do that, we can look at it at our next meeting of February something. If I'm right, then it would take us to the last piece of business on tonight's agenda, which is the minutes of the meeting of December 4.
I got the impression on the other one was easier as far as 49.
Yeah.
I mean, number 14 was a little more straightforward. Okay, that was the impression I got.
Yep.
That they weren't really concerns. Okay.
Agreed. I had a couple of things that I saw in the minutes, but let's get to Gunnar.
Page 2 on the second paragraph, is hold a public. Shouldn't it be a public hearing?
Well, there's two holds also.
Where are we?
Second paragraph.
There's two holds.
Oh, I
and a
missed that.
Public hearing.
Boy, I don't like missing anything. Good job of that.
I'm assuming you got the is and will, yeah.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
okay.
And
Oh,
then
but
the
the second, we should mention the second paragraph, right? Is that what you?
Oh,
The public hearing?
Oh, a public, the hearing is missing.
Mackenzie moved to hold a public
Oh, hearing.
hearing.
Yeah, it's twice, and it's down here as well, hearing as well.
Boy, you guys are really good.
And then it's the same thing on the next page.
Yeah.
I saw that.
Yeah.
And hold is twice again. If you
Yeah.
notice that on top of page 3. Rich?
Yep. If you could pass
Kelly,
it down,
what's
I
up?
can make more notes.
And
We'll
then-
pass them down to you.
Yeah, you have this one.
What page are you on? Providing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, and then trail.
Oh, yeah, trail. We had that one back here on page 4. 2020, top of page 5.
yeah, trial, so
Yeah.
should go to trial.
Not 2002.
Yeah.
And then the, you got that right as well. And then the only other on the first page was very simple typo stuff, which I'll pass to you,
Okay,
Rich.
great.
But you can just do at your leisure.
You get points for the most corrections.
Yes, yes.
Get a lollipop.
Look, keep a watch on your mailbox, you'll see those.
I think you would win, Jim. You seem to be the one to
Definitely you
find
would win.
most of them.
If there is no other business be brought,
Was there a motion on the minutes?
that's what I was just gonna ask.
I'll move.
Maybe we have
To
a
approve.
motion to approve the minutes of December 4th of last year.
Move.
I'll second.
Thank you, Kelly. Seconded Gunnar. Jumped ahead of you there. And may we vote on that?
Aye.
Aye. Does anybody have any other thoughts that they want to present for tonight? I don't think so. And I think we can therefore say this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, Channel 79.
Motion?
Oh, we needed a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Move.
Kelly, Susan, thank you for seconding. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Sorry for the procedural misstep. And
We're off the
You did a
record.
nice
we're
job.
now off the record.